You guys ready to talk cameras? I'm not here to compare the Sony A7C to other Sony cameras or other systems in general. I'm just here to talk about why that's a good camera for me, and maybe it will be for you too. If I could boil it down to one single reason I bought that thing, it's because it has a flip screen. Choosing a camera should really be about finding something that suits your needs for the right price and not the most flashy system, right? So what do I use this thing for? I consider myself a hybrid shooter who makes videos that live on social media platforms, and a stills shooter, mostly dogs, who shoots action and portraiture using off-camera flash. So let's back up several years. I started with a Canon 7D2, bought it because I was doing some weddings, but also I wanted to have action stuff, baseball games, dogs, other things, and it was a great tool for that. But then, I made the mistake of buying this thing, which I love. But the problem is that buying that forced me to learn how to edit video, because what's the point of having drone footage if you can't edit video? Then I came to the conclusion that, wow, how cool would it be to have the drone footage and some ground footage? And video got its hooks into me. So I bought my first video camera, which was a Sony A7C, really just because I heard it was great in low light and in a lot of different situations, and it has been. But learning how to vlog with a screen that doesn't flip out is a gigantic pain in the ass. And I wasn't willing to put up with that any longer. So when I saw the A7C released, I was pretty much all in just based on the flip screen. So I got one. Started shooting video. It was great for that. And then I was tooling around one day, taking shots of the dogs, and I thought, that actually does a pretty good job. I was liking the files that were coming out of there. The action burst was nice. I threw my Canon trigger, flash trigger on there, and it actually worked. Took some off-camera stuff, and I was like, okay, I no longer have a need to maintain two systems. I can get what I want out of one camera. And that's really how it came to be. When I consider the video specs of the A7C, 4K is not that important to me. In fact, I never shoot in 4K. The files are just too big, bogs down my computer, so that wasn't a thing for me. 1080 has been perfectly fine. And if I'm gonna shoot slow-mo, it's basically 60 frames per second. I almost never go into 100 or anything above that. So I've got 1080 at 60, totally fine with that. Another huge selling point for me was the weight. Now I know it's not drastically different than the A7S2, but it is much smaller than other SLRs on the market and other mirrorless stuff. So a big part of what I do is hiking, whether it's with the dogs or with my buddy in the mountains. In fact, last year we hiked Long's Peak, which is a 14,000 foot peak in Colorado, 12 hours round trip, and I had the A7S2 clipped to my Camelback the entire time. By the way, those peak design clips are the way to go if you're gonna do a lot of hiking with a camera. So having something that's very small is important to me, walking that kind of distance or just being up in the hills with the dogs. So in terms of off-camera flash, when I shoot, I use a Godox or a Flashpoint Explorer 600, it's the same company, and the X1 flash trigger. I did get the Sony version because the Canon version only fired sporadically, and of course I needed a Sony version anyway, so I got that, and that's what I use when I'm up in the hills. Now I mentioned the flip screen for video, and it's been great for that. What I didn't realize is how awesome it would be for still photos. So when I'm shooting off-camera portraiture, I'm almost always by myself, so I have to manipulate the flash and the camera itself, and that flip out screen has been amazing. I can sit there and lower the angle, get low to the ground, and do it this way and manipulate the flash rather than having to put it to my eye and try to get low at the same time, which was always a huge challenge for me. I never foresaw how good the flip out screen would be for still photos, but for the way I'm shooting, it's absolutely perfect. Couldn't ask for anything better. In terms of action, I did need a different lens. I've got the 1630 that I use for all my video stuff. This G Master 70-200 was the thing I needed. I packed up my 72 with 4 lenses in exchange for this lens, and it's been amazing. I've done a lot of action shots, both with my dogs and with my nephew's dog. His German short-haired pointer is probably the fastest dog I've ever been around, and I was able to get great action shots of Summit, the GSP. One of the sort of weird things coming from an optical viewfinder to an EVF when shooting action is that it kind of looks like stop motion as I'm shooting. The EVF sort of pauses just a little bit versus this continuous motion. That's been a little weird for me, but I have to admit, I think I'm getting more successful action shots with this camera than I was with the 72. It's got this automatic tracking feature and animal facial feature. And so once you lock onto the target, it locks on regardless of where you move the screen. And I think as I was panning with the 72 a lot, I would sort of get past the subject a little bit, then try to come back. Well, this thing is tracking the subject the entire time. So if you move too far this way or that way, it's still tracking on the subject. I'm getting a lot of good shots. I'm very pleasantly surprised with how good that's been, both in terms of off-camera flash and action shots. So for me, the A7C is this perfect little tool that I can take with me to shoot video and stills at the same time. And I couldn't be happier with that purchase. Cheers.